to judge someone else's process, because I had people looking at me like, you're doing too much, you're going crazy, why are you a conspiracy theorist, why do you care so much about this, you need to just calm down and you need to just focus on what's really important. They couldn't honor where I was because they couldn't honor where they were. Little did I know that sooner than later I would progress past being a conspiracy theorist and being paranoid about everything. I would progress past that, but I needed to go through that to get an understanding. So, as I went through my conspiracy theorist phase, I still always had a desire to know God. I still always had a desire to know the truth. And I was still always intrigued with the life of the mind and the emotions. One day, I don't know if it was just one day, because these things blur together in my mind. But at some point in time, I thought about the fact that if there was only one God, that means that everybody else is wrong. And I didn't want to make everybody else wrong. So I decided to not believe in God anymore. And so when I decided to not believe in God anymore, and I decided to call myself an atheist and focus strictly on reason and on empirical evidence, that made me sad. It made me really sad, honestly, because I wanted to live in reality. And I wanted to be the person that didn't make things up and didn't live in a fantasy world. I wanted to take on the world as it is. But for some reason, atheism, I think I was just too soft for it, to for lack of a better word. I think I was just too spiritual to be an atheist and just too needy. And so after, I don't know how long I was an atheist. I think I was an atheist for about a year. After realizing that atheism wasn't the best road for me, I decided to look into other alternatives. And that was when I started, well, I had always been listening to Alan Watts, but that was when I really started to listen to Alan Watts. And even though I was reading books by people that were atheists, I wanted to look into reading books by people that had more of a middle way. And that was when I came across Teal Swan, the spiritual catalyst. And there's a lot of people out there that are walking a middle way. And as I was going through this journey from being all the way on the left, then going all the way to the right, to coming back into the middle, I realized that this process of what I was doing was called integration. I was learning to integrate the aspects of my personality that I had rejected. I had this whole time, and through this whole process, I was learning to make peace with who I was, making peace with the person that I rejected before, making peace with the concepts and the ideologies that I had rejected before, and integrating them. And it was kind of like I went from eating the same meal every single day to eating a meal that was completely opposite every single day, to going to a buffet where I pick and I choose. And you know what's liberating about being able to pick and choose? When you're able to pick and choose, yes, it does confuse people, and yes, you do disappoint people, but at least you're enjoying your meal on the buffet. At least when I go to the buffet, I know what it is that I'm going to like, and I know what it is that's going to resonate with me. And I will enjoy what's on my plate. And when I enjoy what's on my plate, I'm not going to judge you for what you have on your plate. See, I used to be a very, very judgmental person. And I use the word discernment. That was my thing. I have the gift of discernment. I have the gift of discernment. I know when people are in sin, and I know when people are being dishonest, and I know when someone is being prideful. And, I felt like I had a right to call people out on it. I have a right to call you out on being proud. I have a right to call you out on being lustful and indulging in sin. Which was interesting. Because everything that I felt the need to call people out on and judge people for, those are all things that I judged myself for. And those are all things that I had been told somewhere in my life that it was not okay. It is not okay for you to be a sexual person. I was told that all the time. It is not okay for you to be a prideful person. Pride goes before a fall, right? So you can't have a whole lot of pride, and you have to be teachable. So the very things that somebody told me I couldn't be, those are the very same things that I found myself telling others that they couldn't be. And it all made sense. It all made total sense when I stepped back and I looked at things from that perspective. And I looked at things from the point where it's like, when you don't realize that everyone around you is mirroring you, you feel the need to be everyone's judge and jury. In reality, you're only pointing the finger at yourself. And now what I do is, when I look at the people in my life, whether I have good feelings about certain people and bad feelings about other people, what I realize is that it's all about my perspective. If there's someone in my life that is narcissistic and I feel uncomfortable about a narcissistic person, I'm realizing now that if I'm uncomfortable with that narcissist that's in my life, it's because I haven't made peace with my narcissistic tendencies yet. If I feel uncomfortable with someone who is just very blunt and very mean, it's because I haven't made peace with that aspect of my personality that can be very blunt and very mean. And I haven't forgiven myself for being that way in the past. So you don't have to stay a certain way, but you do have to forgive yourself for being that way in the past. We have to forgive ourselves for being judgmental. We have to forgive ourselves for being narcissistic. And we have to forgive ourselves for being blunt and being mean. Just because that's not who you are anymore, that doesn't mean that you pass judgment on that aspect of yourself when it shows up in your life. Sometimes it just shows up in your life just to show you that that's not who you are anymore. So all of that to say that authenticity is about integration. It's about a journey, and you have to go through something before you can truly be authentic. I think that humanity, we're really starting to grow up. We're really starting to grow up as a consciousness. And we're at a point now where we can accept things that we couldn't accept 100 years ago, 50 years ago, or even 10 years ago. We can handle the truth a lot more easier than we could in the past. And that is why, as a collective consciousness, we have been crying out for authenticity. We have been crying out for people that can show us how to integrate, what it looks like to accept your light body and your shadow self all in one person. And yes, you're going to offend people. Yes, you're going to disappoint people. And yes, people are going to judge you. But at least we're ready. Even if you're ahead of your time, and it's painful to be ahead of your time because it's so incredibly lonely and you feel so misunderstood. But I believe that some of us, even though it's painful and it's lonely, some of us are ready to model what true authenticity looks like. And it's time to start now. It's already started. Get ready for a revolution. Have a good day.